Hey Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, how are you? Matt Phillips here of RunChatLive.com. How are you? Oh, hot one down here on the south coast. Well, hot, kind of muggy, top off, but kind of not because of blazing sun, just because you're sweating so much. It's that sort of weather. But anyway, so where are we? Day 11 of Run a Day, July 2021. If you're not familiar with the challenge, then check out runaday.co.uk and maybe think about signing up for August. If you fancy a daily challenge, you haven't got to run. It could be run, walk. It could be 1k, 3k, 5k, 10k. It doesn't matter. It's just about getting you outdoors and benefiting physically and mentally from daily exercise. Sensible daily exercise. And the idea of these videos from me is just to guide you to make sure that you don't overdo it or give up, and to give you some education along the way, just kind of little snippets of information, because as some of you, thanks to the feedback, the emails you send me, some of you are realizing now, especially with running, there's an awful lot of misinformation out there. And how was one of the questions I got last week. How is there so much running information? And it's a good question, and I think the answer is just because it's such a popular sport, and became popular so quickly, and you can do it without any coaching, without any professional advice, without any team players. And you're not part of a team really, unless you're doing a relay or something. So it's very easy just to stick your shoes on after looking at Google and then going out and just doing it. Okay, and lots of people get by fantastically doing that. Other people will go to a club, but you know what? A lot of the clubs are just full of people as well who have just taken up running, and some of them have got really good at it, and some of them haven't, and the ones who haven't, listen to the ones who have. The information part of it, there hasn't been a lot of research on it, so a lot of industry experts have kind of come from just experimenting with people, with themselves mainly, and then finding something that works, and often suggesting that everybody should be doing that. And what we've found out over time is that although we all love running and kind of wear similar gear, our bodies are actually very different when it comes to responding to running. Not just the shape and size of our bodies, but like the shape of our bones, the way our muscles absorb the energy of landing. The way we run can vary considerably, especially amongst recreational runners. You only got to see that when you look at people running. They're all running differently. So lots of different reasons why we can get injured, but we're not quite sure why. Okay, and where there's an absence of information, then a lot of theories can kind of get in there, but they are just theories, and a lot of them aren't very watertight. A lot of them are just wrong, but they're marketed well and they appear good. Okay, so a couple of days ago, I talked about shoes, for example, which is still a lot of people will go impossible. It can't be right. Any shoe shop I go to, they're still seeing if I'm an overpronator. I'm sorry, what can I say? In fact, it's not all shoe shops now. The smaller independent shoe shops in particular have kind of read up, and in the last kind of 5 years or so, kind of taken on board. Even the bigger shoe companies have taken the word overpronation out of their websites, because don't forget, myself and people, the circles I move in, we've been watching these websites for maybe 10-12 years, so we've seen how they've evolved, and it does take a long time for information from research, from studies, to filter on down to shops and to clinics and to therapists. It takes a very long time. In Run Chat Live, when I was doing the podcast, one of my guests was Dr. Ben O'Neill, and he was saying back in the 1990s, even possibly 89, 90, that questioning the idea that overpronation was a way of prescribing footwear and explaining injury. And that was back in 1990. and yet it was only probably maybe 2010, maybe 2012, when shoe shops started kind of getting into it and kind of thinking, well, maybe there's something else to this. Anyway, so there you go. Last week I talked about stretching before a run, which is another example of something which runners automatically do and many courses still teach. Big coaching companies, English coaching companies, have only just started questioning the idea of let's all get in a circle and stretch our hamstrings, stretch our quads. But I'm hoping after yesterday's, wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday's, day 9's chat, that I gave you, I'm not just telling you, I'm giving you ways to maybe see that it doesn't make much sense pulling your heel up to your bum if your heel's never going to go up to your bum when you're running. It doesn't make much sense drastically trying to touch your toes if you're never going to get that sort of stretch in your hamstrings when you're running. It's just not going to happen, so why are we trying to reach it? And then I also kind of added the fact that running is being a bit like a spring, a pogo stick, bouncing from leg to leg. A kangaroo. If you had floppy legs, slinkies, you're not going to bounce very hard or far. Okay, so actually the way that your muscles and tendons propel you forwards is more likely to be like a spring, like a tight, stiff spring. So it doesn't make much sense stretching before. So anyway, that was a recap of the last couple of days. I'm only doing these videos every other day now. Somebody warned me that it's just too much every day. People will get tired of you, Matt, your name just springing up every day. Matt's live again, so I'll probably do them every other day, unless I've had a really cool run and I just think I've got to tell somebody something, in which case I'll get on. If you don't want to listen to it, then don't listen to it, that's fine. But anyway, so today I did promise I'd chat about stretching after running. Okay, what about after running, Matt? Somebody asked. So again, let's just briefly say, why do we stretch after running? Okay, and a lot of people still do it. Again, if you're in a group, you'll sit down maybe this time, or maybe you'll still find that wall and stick your leg up and bring your chest down to your knee. And why are we doing it? What do we think we're achieving by it? So one, generally runners will believe that they are reducing the risk of injury by, people often say, restoring muscles to their normal length. Okay, you'll see that everywhere. Stretching is really good for you after exercise to restore your muscles to their normal length. Okay, well, let's go with that for the moment. Is the normal length of your muscles you touching your toes? What is your normal length? Are you normally sort of doubled over with your fingers down to your toes? Not really. That's not your normal length of hamstring, is it? In fact, during your life, again, unless you're a martial artist or a ballerina or some kind of contortionist, you're probably very unlikely to need to touch your toes, to tell you the truth. It's nice if you can. It means you can do your shoelaces up without bending your legs. But you know what? Your legs have got knees for a reason. You can bend your knee and do your shoes up that way. So there's no real normal length in terms of trying to touch your toes. It's not a functional length we use in life. What other things? Stretching your hip flexors, another one afterwards. We'll kneel down, tilt our pelvis, stretch your arm to the ceiling. I used to teach all of this, believe me. I'm not, I don't want to be called a hypocrite, because I know that years ago I used to encourage this and you know, have groups of runners take marathon training. I'd get everyone doing this seriously, holding on to 20 seconds, stretch those hip flexors. But again, do we need, is that a normal range when we're feeling that stretch in the front of our hip? No, it's not. When we walk, we have about 12 degrees, 10 to 12 degrees of hip flexion, of hip extension, as in your leg moving behind you. It's actually less than when you run. So there's no restoration of normal length there at all. Same goes for your calf, same goes for everything. Cut a long story short, returning your legs to their normal length by stretching is not really a valid argument. You would achieve that probably just by swinging your legs a little bit, doing a little, just relax, just swinging. The same thing as you do with your arms or your neck. Oh, that's it. My neck's back to its normal range now. Done. You know. What else? Reducing soreness. That's an interesting one. And I used to teach it. So reduce soreness by stretching after your run. Have a quick look at that. again, I know a lot of runners get bored by the fact that research doesn't support it. Oh yes, but research can't recreate the context. But again, if you think about it, why would stretching reduce injury? You're not going to, I mean, you injure yourself by pulling a muscle, by forcing it to rapidly get to a length where it's not ready to go that length. Take a footballer who does a tackle quickly and the leg goes way out to the side, they're almost doing the splits. They can get a groin strain because their body wasn't prepared to stretch that far, the adductor muscle. But again, in life, once you get back in your car and drive home or walk through the front door, you're very likely to be splitting and doing a sliding tackle. So there isn't any reason that why stretching after a run should reduce the risk of injury. It's just not there. It's not in the list. In fact, and I've found, this is anecdotal, but I kind of understand the idea that after particularly strenuous exercises, there's actually micro tears in your muscles, and it's normal. We think of the tear as an ugly word, but the reason you get DOMS, like especially 2 days delayed onset of muscle soreness 2 days after exercise, is because you've probably overdone it. Maybe you've got these little tears in your muscles, which could be the contributing towards this aching and pain. And one theory is if you have got little micro tears in your muscles, which heal by themselves, don't worry. We know that DOMS only lasts a couple of days. When you do a marathon, for example, those of you who have gone there, or half marathon, you can't walk for a day or two, but it does come back. You don't need medical intervention, you don't need surgery. It just takes a while for these tiny little tears to repair. So one of the reasons can be that if you do stretch a lot after a run, imagine you really are forcing a hamstring stretch, trying to touch your toes, or forcing a hip flexor stretch or a quad stretch, and you're finding that end point and just trying to get that little bit further, because it's a challenge. That's why it's popular, isn't it? That's why people love stretching, because it's like, oh, a challenge, the body's resisting me and I'm going to push through it, push through the pain, no pain, no gain. But what you could actually be doing is you could be making these little tears worse, maybe. And in my time, when I get runners who are particularly sore after runs, normally my advice is, well, one, are you doing too much? That's the biggest reason for hurting too much after exercise. And two, if they're not doing that, then are you stretching quite a lot? And if the athletes or runners that I found who do go through a really strict stretching protocol after their run, I experiment a little bit with them, and I'll get them to actually reduce the amount of stretching. And guess what? If I wrote down 10 of them on a bit of paper, 7 of them come back and say, oh, it doesn't hurt as much afterwards, particularly in the hip flexors, it seems. So yeah, so where are we then? So yeah, stretching after run, it's not likely to reduce injury, it's not likely to make you less sore. So why do it then? In fact, it could make things worse. So again, why do it? Well, one, it feels nice, it's true, it feels good. And if you want to do it and you're not in a rush, then fine, because I'm all up for allowing the heart rate and the rest of your body just to reach homeostasis again, to calm down, to reach balance. That's really important after a run, psychologically and mentally, just to come back down to earth, straight back down. Okay. So if during that time then you are doing some light stretches, and that's fine if you want to do it. But the only thing that worries me is when, again, runners put faith into stretching, believing that that is going to be sufficient to stop them from getting injured. Same thing goes before running. They believe that that is going to stop them from getting injured. And if you believe that, and you put a lot of faith into that, then normally that means that you could be not putting maybe something more evidence-based effort elsewhere. So if we know, for example, that 70 or 80% of running injuries are because of inappropriate training, doing too much too soon too often. I know a lot of runners who do too much too soon too often, but they believe that by stretching before and afterwards they'll be safe. And guess what? Most of them aren't. So for me, the reason I go on and on about stretching is I believe a lot of runners, because it's so simple to do and so simple to find, and it feels like you're beating something, you're achieving something before and after, then it kind of, I think, too much faith gets put into that and not enough faith gets put into things like strength training for performance, which we know will increase your performance, like monitoring your load, which we know will reduce the risk of injury, like checking your sleep, your nutrition, all those things. So my advice to runners is, if you're covering what I normally draw on Run Chat Live, and you can see I've done it on a few of the videos. If you look at some of my YouTube videos, you'll see I have a little pyramid, and at the bottom you've got training load, you've got how much, how soon, how quickly, you've got strength training, and then towards the top you've got things like shoes, stretching, foam rolling, all that sort of stuff. If you've got the bottom covered, so if you are being sensible with your training, if you're doing some strength training of some form, then fine, then go ahead, and if you enjoy and you've got time to do your stretching, then great, knock yourself out. But don't turn the pyramid upside down. Don't spend all your time doing stretching and foam rolling and acupuncture and all those other things which runners kind of like, massage, and don't put that on the bottom of your pyramid. Don't spend too much time doing those things, just because they're not very evidence-based, and often they just don't make much sense. Okay, and that means you're going to devote a little bit of time to the stuff which does kind of make sense. So make sure you got your pyramid the right way. Maybe I'll try and put in the comments here a link or a picture of the pyramid I'm talking about. Personally, after a run, what I do is sit around like this and just talk on the phone for a bit. And whilst I'm doing this, I'm just kind of moving my legs. I'm just bending them. I'm opening and closing them. Do you need a shot? Yeah, I'm moving my knee. I'm rotating my ankle. I'm doing what the acronym I've used in posts on Run Chat Live is HELP. I give myself some help after a run, and that was H for Hydrate. Okay, I haven't got water with me now, but I make sure when I get home, the first thing I do is have a little bit of either water, or if you've had a particularly long run, then maybe something with a bit of electrolytes in it. Sometimes maybe I'll have some kind of shake or something if it's been a bit more intensive, or I'm doing something else in the afternoon. But yeah, hydrate yourself when you get back. Too many runners just don't do anything. They just go straight from a run to, I don't know, family affairs or work or something, and they just miss that return of the water, which is quite important. Doesn't have to be too much. I haven't got to force litres down, but just get something back. You've obviously sweated when you run if it's hot, so replenish yourself. That's the H of help. E, I just put in because it makes a word. L was normally just lie down or sit down. I think if you lie or sit down, then it's nice. It takes time. It gives yourself 5 minutes just to come back down to earth again and relax, which I think is important, mentally and physically. And then the P was just for pump. So literally I just pump my joints. So ankle, knee. I'll just do circles and opening and closing to my hips and stuff, just again to get some movement back. I'm not trying to restore some kind of excessive range of movement. I'm not doing some massive big stretch. I'm just getting my joints back to bending like they normally would if I was bending my knee or crossing my legs, or sitting down in a chair or standing up. Because running, you have been, in a different position for quite a long period of time. So it's a nice idea just to move your joints through their natural range before you crack on with your day. Got off me a little butterfly. So yeah, that's what I generally do, and just take things easy. I don't personally recommend a real big yoga class of some form by yourself on the grass after particularly strenuous exercise, because you could be maybe making things a little bit worse if you force a length after you've just been using that muscle and getting it short. Right, there we go. That's quite a long one. So yeah, I'm probably going to do this every other day here. So congratulations people who are on Runner Day. Let me just check. Yeah, it's day 11. You're past a third of the way now. Well done. How do you feel? Nearly, you're about 35% through your month now. So I'll catch you on day 13, which will be Tuesday. And don't know what we'll talk about there. As always now, if you are watching these and people do email me, I'll tell them. Just if you fancy hearing about something, then email me. Matt, what about this? What about this? What about Garmin's? Or what about this? Or other things people have asked me about. What did someone ask me about the other day? Water packs for your back. I don't think you need that if you're doing 5k. But if you were doing maybe 20k a day, then maybe. But yeah, yeah, feel free to ask me a question, and I will gladly sit down and just talk about it a little bit, based on my experience, but more importantly on what the research kind of says. Right, that's it, people. Hope you're well. As always, check out runchecklife.com. Check out YouTube. There's loads of videos on there if you like this sort of stuff, which you can browse through in your own time. And if you are interested in doing the challenge, then think about August. Before you know it, it'll be August. So you can sign up. Not yet. Wait until the last few days of July and then sign up at www.runaday.co.uk. And yeah, and then we'll see you in August. Right, that's it. From the very sunny south coast of England, a bit moggy with seagulls on the roof, I wish you a good day. Oh, and good luck England tonight. I'm not a massive football fan, but I understand the importance of it. It's been a few years, hasn't it? So good luck England. I know a lot of people will be happy. I know you will all be happy. Yeah, I hope everyone watching it stays safe and is responsible and doesn't get into fights. Bye bye.